Hi everyone. This one's about the media again, but can they turn lies into truth? By Mark Carlin, 11th of August, 2011. 11 from Truth Out website. Robert Kane's Papa's director of Orwell rolls in his grave. Okay. In the midst of the dust-up of Rupert Murdoch's News Corp phone hacking scandal, a larger question is rarely raised in the corporate media coverage of the story. How did it come to be that one man, through international media corporation, have come to such enormous influence over the UK government, much of the elected power structure in Washington DC, and the political hierarchy in Australia? Watching Orwell roll in his graves, it becomes increasingly clear that we can't see through the forest. See the forest through the trees, because with the consolidation of for-profit corporate media, the forest of information is pretty much owned by just a few companies. And these companies not only create facts to enhance profits, but they also create the fame through which public policy is debated to meet their business goals. Could a media system controlled by a few global corporations with the ability to overwhelm all competing voices be able to turn lies into the truth? This is a question Robert Kane Pappas, the director and narrator of Orwell Rolls, undertakes to answer in a documentary that is both a journey through the harm done by corporate media consolidation and a testament to how relevant George Orwell's book on the totalitarianism 1984 is today. Orwell rolls in his grave, filmed during the Bush administration, is the truth out progressive prick of the reel. Mark Carlin, how do you feel about the power and profit-hungry side of the corporate media industry we are seeing unravel in Murdoch News Corp? Robert, through lobbyists, media companies like News Corp largely write laws and fill in the key details of regulations. In the fall of 2002, prior to our Iraq invasion, I was filming around the congressional office buildings. Independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, chief of staff, assigned a friendly and competent assistant to take me around and show me where it all happens. How laws are written through the halls and the committee hearing rooms, places mainstream news organizations rarely place their cameras. Podiums and sound bites are their methodology. It's easier and cheaper. Here I was introduced to something called placeholders outside the hearing rooms, where the lawmakers are examining, for instance, telecommunication policy. Down and out looking people are paid to show up first thing in the morning. They sit or stand on the floor on a little round pieces of paper about 12 inches wide, while saving places supposedly reserved for the public, for the lobbyists, who show up minutes before the hearing begins in their Brooks Brothers suits and replace the placeholders. It's about writing the laws, the inherent promise of future jobs in the private sector, the revolving door, and campaign donations. So additional to drafting new laws, the regulations and politicians are captured by the people they are supposed to be regulating, including corporations like News Corp. MK. The use of quotations from Orwell's 1984 as an ongoing analogy to modern media age is quite effective in the documentary. How did you come up with this idea and pick specific passages from 1984? PK. I had been thinking independently about our ability to forget things that happened, specifically events that clearly were wrong, that crossed the line. It seemed to me that during the 2000 election recount that the media's narrative was being orchestrated. Shockingly, after the Supreme Court decision, the media simply said, "Time to move on. End of reporting. Here's a news story," and everyone forgot. I remembered Orwell's 1984, I picked it up, reread it, and I looked for relevant passages. Research Tom Blackburn combs through the text for specific quotes. Orwell also focuses on the meaning of words and the motivation of them, because there's for each word, there's 900 different words in the English language. So I thought, let's film an Orwellian media dictionary. I made a list of words that are used and altered in media political nexus. I wonder if those words are part of YouTube's algorithms that make your sound play up. I have to watch this documentary. This film is in large a personal reflection and interspersed with experts on media consolidation such as Bernie Sanders, Robert Machesky, and Mark Crispin Miller. How did you personally come to focus to the pernicious efforts of the profit-driven corporate media owned by just a few companies? RKP. I went to New York I think it's NYU Tisch Graduate School of Film. Many of us had an idea of doing an independent film and making personal relevant films as opposed to Hollywood fluff. I directed a few. Problem for independent filmmakers is huge companies control all the promotion and all the advertising. Hollywood films' advertising budgets are as large as their shooting budgets. We didn't understand this at first. Doesn't matter how good your film is, if people don't know about it, they won't go and see it. So I understood the paradigm, and I could realize it in the way stories have become to be covered. At one point, while I was at the NYU, the Iranian hostages had been in captivity for over 350 days, and for each of these days, the New York Post had a little hand-drawn picture of a blindfolded hostage with the number of days accrued typed below. I called it the never-ending news story. I got fed up with the ongoing soap opera. I grabbed a primitive video camera from a classmate, and I talked my way into the video interview with Murdoch's editor at the New York Post, who ended up telling me he was quitting in disgust. MK, you have a great clip from more than 2 decades ago with you interviewing the then outgoing editor of the New York Post after Murdoch acquired it. It is grainy and faded and seems to be a ghost from the past that foretells so much. What happened in the interviewing years to strengthen your conviction that the information we received about public policy issues and news is brought to us in an Orwellian frame? RKP. Media manipulation has been going on for a long time. There are many examples. William Randolph Hearst comes to mind. The difference is in degree. In my new doc on science of aging, to age or not to age, scientists discuss degrees of aging damage. Startingly simple idea is that degrees over time change the nature of things. I think it is relevant to the pickle we are in, not only with regard to the corporate media, but also our economy, various wars, etc., etc. There is also more and more media concentration, less reporting, more manufactured PR. The nature of the impact to our society changes, has unforeseen negative effects that has become circulated in nature. In the ways of doing the campaign, in what ways do the campaign contributions of these large news delivery companies influence politics in the US? RKP, there is similar to the problem of independent films. A politician without money for advertising is out of luck. They are not taken seriously. The media companies control whether a candidate gets coverage, which itself is tied to knowledge of how much he or she has raised. The networks then know how much money the candidate is likely to spend on commercial airtime buys, so this is a reinforcing system of legal corruption, a quad pro news coverage. MK, does it surprise you at all that it appears Murdoch pretty much owned the current UK Prime Minister and is rumoured to have heavily influenced Tony Blair? KP, it doesn't surprise me at the least. A number of political GOP presidential candidates are paid commentators. On Fox, Murdoch had perfected the technique until the hacking of a British teenage girl happened. MK, how has it come to be that Fox News has set the tone for framing discussion of public policy and politics on television and even in Capitol Hill? RKP, Fox News is able to set the range of discussion partly because of the vertical nature of Murdoch's holding, which includes books, TV, cable, movies, newspaper, magazines. He is the kindling of the fuel for ideas developed by people like Koch and the right-wing think tanks. This is an infrastructure that dwarfs this silly talk about so-called liberal bias in the media, which is right-wing myth generated by the likes of Fox. Moreover, News Corp has become so powerful that any other media entities like NBC, etc., feels compelled to respond to a Fox narrative, further driving the coverage. On Capitol Hill, the GOP is almost totally captured by a special interest. The Republican leadership propels talking points, period. That is the basis of their careers and leads to regular appearances on TV. They become well known. A greater narrative of the Democrats are captured as well. This adds up to a tipping point of corrupt politicians and a rigged media narrative. MK, you discussed the film on how the majority of Americans held beliefs on certain reasons the Bush administration cited for going to war with Iraq that was simply not true. Isn't that in a large part because news outlets became simply megaphones for the White House during the build-up of the Iraq war? RKP, if you repeat a lie and often enough, people will believe it. It's really public brainwashing and misinformation. MK, we've seen a precipitous decline in investigative reporting in the corporate media. Is this because investigative reporting is not profitable, or it might reveal too much about the government that the not-for-profit media relies upon for favorable business regulations? I think the answer is both. In-depth reporting is expensive, and the reporting you see on news is shit. It's just advertising, promoting influencers. It's just, yeah, RKP. It's much cheaper to have people sit around or on remotes and talk about politics like it's baseball, but there's also a predetermined intent in terms of what's reported and how it's reported, and to the degree on which the story is published. Both have bad effects. I can answer this with an analogy. Scientists have had trouble conquering certain diseases precisely because there are multiple causes, redundant processes, and feedback loops. Dr. Gantry at MIT explained that in aging, so many things are going wrong that it is thought impossible to fix enough of them at once in order to intervene to slow aging down. Then scientists accidentally stumble upon a certain nexus genes which operate high in the pyramid of cause and effect to influence many downstream effects. Likewise, the problem of media politics is multifold. Many things there are out of whack. How can we get around this snafu? Well, Rupert Murdoch is the nexus point. This may be an opportune moment. MK. Murdoch's News Corp is grievously wounded, perhaps critically, in the UK, and time will tell if this is the case in US and Australia. Now, 20 years later, we know that's not the case. How did Murdoch come to be a shadow power broker with such enormous political influence and clout in the US, UK, and Australia? And in the UK, certainly in the Republican Party in the US, the connection between Murdoch and the government is almost seamless. RKP. Murdoch's empire is several decades in the making. He is absolutely hands-on. I interviewed his former private chief and housekeeper. The first thing his chef said was, "When I get a call, it's Rupert Murdoch on the phone, not an assistant." They also told me that Rupert at that time could operate a VCR or a computer, but he had a Rolodex that contained his personal phone numbers of the heads of states, top financiers, even Princess Diana. Princess Diana's real name is Audine Rothschild, so it's a Rothschild. He makes and breaks political careers and has been doing business in a certain way for a long time. So, Orwell rolls in his graves, 25th of December 2010, from a YouTube website. Director Robert Kane Pappas, Orwell rolls over his grave, is the consumable critical examination of the fourth estate, once the bastion of American democracy, asking whether America has entered a Orwellian world of doublespeak, where outright lies can pass as the truth. Pappas explores what the media doesn't like to talk about itself, meticulously tracing the process by which media has distorted and often dismissed more actual news events. Pappas presents a riveting and an eloquent mix of media professionals and leading intellectual voices on the media. Among the cast of characters of Orwell rolls over in his graves are Charles Lewis, Director of Center for Public Integrity; Vincent Volosky, former LA prosecutor and legal scholar; film director and author Michael Moore. Michael Moore, Freemason. Republican Bernie Sanders, Denny Sheeter, author, former producer, ABC, CNN; Tony Benn, former member of the British Parliament. So it provides a vital forum for ideas that will never be heard in mainstream media. From Global Vision's Denny Skeeter. We falsely think our country is as a democracy because it has evolved into a medicracy, where the media that is supposed to check political abuse is part of the political abuse. New York University media professor Mark Crispin Miller says the commercial entities now vie with the government for control over our lives. They are not healthy counterweight to government. Goebbels said that what you want in a media system, and he meant the Nazi media system, is to present the ostentable diversity that conceals an actual uniformity. Sorry for saying some of these words wrong. I can't say that word, and I'm not going to try. From the very size of the media monopolies and how they got their way to who decides on who gets air and who doesn't, Orwell rolls over in his grave, moves through a troubling list of questions and news stories that go unanswered and unreported in the mainstream media. Are Americans being given information and democracy needs to survive, or have they been electronically lobotomized? And yeah, that's a good word. Electronically lobotomized. Has the frenzy for media consolidation led to a dangerous irony where the era of more news sources, the majority of the population has actually become less informed? Yeah, true. Like, you look at the papers from 1900 compared to now, they were like a book, they were huge, 100 pages, 150 pages. Now the paper's probably 4 or 5 pages. It reminds us that 1984 is no longer a date in the future. Comments. The book 1984, written in 1949 by English writer George Orwell, was a book of a future in which the future was run by a dictatorship which successfully controlled the minds of its population. Must-see film explains the umbrella of the problems the United States self-censored media. It also explains why there is a need for a website like ours. And of course, guess who's removed it? Yeah. It no longer available because the YouTube account video has been terminated. So of course this is what they do. Yeah. So try and have a look up on the IMDb base. I'll have a quick look for you to see if it's out there. You might be able to find it somewhere. So the IMDb has it here. It done 2003, 1 hour 24 minutes. A documentary, 19th of November 2004. I've got no idea. Where you could watch it. Okay, I found the actual website. I'll leave the links in the description if you want to purchase it. June 12, 2012, at high level levels inquiry in the UK, ex-Prime Minister John Major stated under oath today that Rupert Murdoch, a non-citizen, demanded that the government change its policies or we, the Murdoch organisation, would oppose him. Major governments didn't, and Murdoch then supported Labour, who won the election. This seems directly contradicted Murdoch's testimony at the Leveson inquiry that he never asked for anything from the Prime Minister. Major complained that this is against the idea of one-person vote. Murdoch controls 1/3 of the British media and hence wields a huge political power. The striking thing here is that Murdoch also controls about 1/3 of the US media, vertically integrated across the network, cable TV properties, newspaper, movie studios, book publishing, and the internet for corporate news media, pundits, and politicos to ignore what's going on with the UK and not to point out the obvious parallels between Murdoch's techniques in the two countries is extraordinary. He's literally brainwashing 30% of the US, demands who knows what from politicians, and the public hears not a peep. So you can buy it. It's $23.90. It's probably American. You can buy it at DVD. It's probably Amazon. Okay, so I'll leave the link in the description for you. Just one other thing quick. I want to quickly share. This is about, I'll put the link in the description. It's privacy killing technologies, about what goes on. So what I wanted to talk about is True Position Intelligent Management System. IMS is a multi-dimensional database which uses probes within the mobile networks to capture and store all mobile phone network events, including time and location events. Mobile phone numbers, items like calls made, received, text messages sent, received, and phone powered on and off, and other rich mobile phone intelligence. Okay. So it's a link to a Murdoch scandal. The relevance of location intelligence in general, and more pointedly the true position of their cell phone surveillance products, which may or may not have been sold to London's Metropolitan Police, and what role they may have played in the Murdoch's News of the World phone hacking scandal, might have been not explored by corporate media. While the who, what, where aspects of the scandal are now coming sharply into focus, the how, that is, the high-tech wizardry behind the invasive privacy breach, and which firms developed and profited from the sales, have been ignored. Such questions and related business entanglements should be of interest in the investigations of both sides of the Atlantic. After all, True's Position parent company and the giant conglomerate Liberty Media currently holds 18% stake in News Corp, with corporate tentacles stretching from investments in Time Warner Cable to Expedia, from QVC to Starts and beyond. Liberty Media is a multi-billion-dollar media behemoth with some $10.9 billion in revenue in 2010, according to SEC filing by the firm. With deep pockets and a political clout in Washington, the company is juiced. In 2011, Liberty CEO John Malone surpassed Ted Turner's as the largest private landowner in the United States, controlling some 2.1 million acres, according to the New York Times. Dubbed Darth Vader by The Independent, Malone acquired 20% stake in News Corp back in 2000 and was one of the main investors who rode it to rescue Mr. Murdoch in the early 90s when News Corp was on its knees. So someone bailed him out, probably Rothschilds or Rockefellers. The New York Times reported back in 2005 that Malone's firm was unlikely to unwind its investment with the News Corporation because he considered the stake in the News Corporation a long-term investment, meaning that the relationship between him and Rupert Murdoch, the chairman of the News Corporation, was not likely to be dissolved anytime soon. After an acrimonious mid-decade negotiations that stretched out over 2 years, the media giants clubbed together in a deal in 2006, resulting in an $11 billion asset swap that gave Liberty control of DirecTV Group, whilst helping Murdoch tighten his grip on News Corp, according to the New York Times. Interestingly enough, during those negotiations, investment banking firms Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Chase, along with white shoelace firm Hogan and Hartson advised News Corp, while Liberty was represented by Bear Stearns and the Baker Bolts law firm, longtime Bush family consligers. I can't say that, sorry, consligers. All this can be chalked up into an interesting set of coincidence. However, the high stakes involved in the relationships, connections, and forged over decades, including those amongst players who figured predominantly in the capitalism 2008 global economic crisis and the Bush family corruption, cannot be ignored. So, last week's suspicious death of former News of the World whistleblower Sean Hoare should set alarm bells ringing. When the scandal broke, it was Hoare, who, I don't want to say it like that, but I don't know how to say it, Hoare, who told New York Times last year that senior editors at News of the World and other Murdoch tabloids, The Sun, actively encouraged staff to spy on celebrities and others, including victims of the London terror attacks, British soldiers killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the murdered teenager Millie Dowler, all in pursuit of exclusives. Guardian reported that he said that reporters at the News of the World were able to use police technology to locate people using their mobile phone signals in exchange for payments to the police officers. He said journalists were able to use pinging, which measured the distance between a mobile handset and the number of phone masts to pinpoint its location, the Guardian revealed. He described how reporters would ask news desk executive to obtain the location of a target. Within 15 to 30 minutes, someone at the news desk would come back and say, right, that's where they were. Quite naturally, this raises the question, which police technology was used to message News of the World exclusives, and which firms made a pretty penny selling their wares to police, allegedly for the purpose of fighting crime and counterterrorism. It was Hoare who told New York Times just a day before his death that when he worked for News of the World, pinging cost the paper nearly $500 on each occasion. According to the Times, Hoare found out how the practice worked when he was scrambling to find someone and was told that one of the news desk editors, Greg Miskew, could help. The Times reports that Miskew asked for the person's cell phone number and returned later with information showing the person's precise location in Scotland. An unnamed former Scotland Yard officer interviewed by the Times said the individual who provided the confidential information to News of the World and other Murdoch holdings could have been one of the small group entitled to authorise the pinging request. That is a senior counter-terrorism officer charged with keeping the British public safe. Hoare told the Times, the fact that it was a police officer was clear from his exchange with Mr. Miskew. I thought it was remarkable that he asked him how he did it, and he said, it's the old Bill, isn't it? At that point you don't ask questions, he said. Yet, despite the relevance to the reporter's death to the scandal, police claim Hoare's sudden demise was unexplained but not thought to be suspicious. As the World Socialist website points out, The statement, at the very least extraordinary and at worst sinister in its implications. Left-wing journalist Chris Marston wrote that Horace is the man who broke the silence on the corrupt practices at the News of the World, and most specifically alleged that former editor Andy Coluson, who later became Prime Minister David Cameron's Director of Communications, was fully aware of the phone hacking that took place on the industrial scale. Aside from the state secret, what other entities that capable of intercepting phone or other electronic communications at an industrial scale? Given Rupert Murdoch's close ties to the political establishment on both sides of the Atlantic, it is a stretch to speculate that a sympathetic intelligence service wouldn't do all they could to help a friend, particularly if cash payments were involved. How could Hall's death not been viewed suspiciously? See, indeed, the morning after his body was found, Marston writes, the former Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Paul Stevenson and his former Deputy John Yates were to give evidence before Home Affairs Senate Committee. Stevenson had tendered his resignation Sunday and Yates on Monday. Conveniently for those with much to hide, including police, the death of Horror means that his testimony will never be heard by any such inquiry, more importantly, by any criminal investigation that may arise. Yet, despite a pending coroner inquest into the exact cause of the reporter's death, corporate media have rushed to judgment, labelling anyone who rises suspicious as being what else? Conspiracy theorists. This is despite the fact that, as the World Socialist website reported Saturday, that the information had surfaced regarding the extent of the News International links known to criminals. Indeed, on July 6, left-wing journalist Robert Stevens reported that Labour MP Tom Watson told Parliament that News International Chief Executive, former News of the World editor Rebecca Brooks was present at the meeting with Scotland Yard when police officers pursuing a murder investigation provided her with evidence that her newspaper was interfering with the pursuit of justice. She was told of the actions by people she paid to expose and discredit David Cook, the detective superintendent, and his wife Jackie Hens, so that Mr. Cook could be prevented from completing an investigation into the murder. Watson added, Stevens writes, News International were paying people to interfere with police officers and were doing so on behalf of known criminals. We know now that News International had entered the criminal underworld. Although Hall had suffered from years of alcohol and cocaine abuse, he was in rehab and by all accounts on the road to recovery. He could not have died from natural causes, but is not yet to be established, pending his histology and toxicology test, which will take weeks. The coroner's inquest will adjourn until July 21, until said test results were in. Short definitive finding, nothing can be sure, nothing more ruled out, including murder or by parties unknown. While it would be a fatal exercise in a rank stupidity for News Corp to rub Sean Hall, would others, including police, organised crime figures caught up in the scandal and known to have been paid by News Corp, people to interfere with police officers and to have done so on behalf of known criminals, have such qualms? So, this went on, I think it was 2000 or something, but the newspaper went bust after this, so since 2008, the Limes location SIM stuff, 75,000 mobile towers in the US have been equipped with the system. Fox News ironically reported 2 years ago that same report informed us, line quote, it continues to operate in Middle Eastern and Asian Pacific nation where no legal restrictions exist for tracking cell phone signals. So I'll leave this link in the description for you, but this is just one of Murdoch's things. So he seems to have his fingers in every pie. Alright. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. Thanks for watching. If you're still with me here, almost 30 minutes later, I appreciate it. And you have a good day, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for watching, and leave your comments. I'll get back to you. And I appreciate everyone that leaves a comment, negative or good. I appreciate them all. So, raise your vibrations, and much love. Thank you. Bye.